Hello, everybody. This is Brian Ankney with AutoSuccess Magazine. I appreciate you all taking a little time out of your day today to join us. Today, actually, I have quite the all-star cast. I've got several guests that I'm going to introduce to you here momentarily. We're going to talk about a little sneak preview to an event that's going to be taking place in Ohio next month. But before we get started, I'd like to share a couple of things with you. If you look on your screen right now, you'll be able to see AutoSuccess webinars. This is a group where I invite you to interact with AutoSuccess staff, our past speakers, but most importantly with each other and with your peers. On these webinars, you come here to learn new things and then you try to implement them in your store, and often it's something that might take a week or a month or a year or multiple years. And as you have successes and failures, I invite you to interact with each other and share those. Make connections with other dealers around the country that are trying to accomplish the same things as you, and maybe you can help somebody else not suffer a failure, and maybe you can not suffer someone else's failure, and even more importantly, benefit from each other's successes. So please join the group on Facebook. One more thing before we get started. We're going to hold all questions to the end. Depending on what type of device you're on, if you're on a computer or a tablet, on the right side of your screen is the GoToWebinar pane. Near the bottom it says questions. Click the plus sign, type in your questions, and we will address all the questions at the end. If you happen to be using an Android or an Apple cell phone, you'll have a pane that kind of wraps around your screen like a picture frame. Somewhere on that frame, depending on the device, there's a question mark. Just touch that question mark. It'll open up a place for you to type in your questions. I've had a few people make comments that it's tricky to get back. You have to hit the thing that looks like a little screen, and that will take you back to the webinar. All right, well, with that, I'd like to introduce this all-star lineup that we're bringing to you today: Mark Tewart, Troy Spring, Craig Lockhart, Andy Church, Stacey Ellison, and Jeff Glacken. Mark, if you would, please take it away and introduce our guests.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate it a bunch, and I appreciate everybody being here today. It is exciting for me for a couple of reasons. Number one, these are all my friends, and over and beyond that, I believe they all have really big hearts for trying to help people. And so I wanted them to be on here today to try to drop some wisdom, if you can, and help anybody that would be on this call. They're all dramatically different in what they do and how they do it. As he mentioned, we have Andy Church, who's CEO of ASE Americas, and he'll talk to you about profitability. Craig Lockhart from AutoMax, that deals with recruiting for the automotive industry. Stacey Ellison of BDC AutoMax, specializing in training and consulting for BDCs in the automotive dealerships. Jeff Glacken with Dealer Authority and social media. And then Troy Spring from Dealer World and the advertising world, both conventional and digital. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to address each one of these folks. I'll wait to the end, and I want everybody to share a few nuggets. So I'm going to start off with you, Craig. How you doing, Craig?
I could not be any better now talking to you, my friend. And the rest of I'm really honored to be on with these folks. It's awesome, and I can't wait till November when we're all face-to-face putting out some knowledge for dealers.
Well, as he mentioned, we are going to be doing a workshop in November. It's November 15th and 16th, and you can get more information on that at my website at tewart.com, TEWART.com. It's a two-day event for managers, dealers. Any manager in a dealership, I think, can benefit from it. Craig, I wanted to ask you, being in the recruiting business, if you could share a couple of things. Number one, give us one or two tips, whether it's recruiting, interviewing, onboarding, things that you think could immediately help people, because if there has to be one area in dealerships where people ask me all the time, they say, what do you think is one area in general in the automotive industry that you think we can do better at? And I said, just my personal opinion, but I think we've always missed the mark somewhat on recruiting and onboarding people and interviewing people. So if you could give a couple of tips, and then once you're done with a couple of tips, throw in something you see as a common, I hate to use the word mistake, but something that might be able to help somebody correct something at a dealership. So with that being said, Craig, take it away.
Awesome, and thank you, and excellent questions. Just recently, in the last couple of days, socially, I've shared a couple of thoughts that really I'd like to talk about now that I think are very important, and I'm going to steal a Stephen Covey line from the 7 Habits of Effective People, and that's with starting with the end in mind. Now, we've all ad nauseum seen the turnover rates in our business per department, per sex. It's out of hand. And we can blame a lot of things. We can blame training, lack of. There's so many areas. However, in starting with the end in mind, I want to talk about retention. I firmly believe, without a doubt, and we are in the process of collecting data to prove this, other than just anecdotally from me, but what we've found, and I think this is true in any industry, but it's especially true in the automobile industry, that new hires at times, a lot of times, quit the first day on the job. Now, their body might be there for another 30, 60, 90 days, but mentally they've quit the very first day on the job. Let me give you an example. So we've made a decision to hire a person, regardless of the department, and your start day is tomorrow. It's Thursday. You come in ready to go. You're pumped. You dress for success. You're ready to conquer the world. You're so pumped about this opportunity. You come in, you talk to the receptionist. I'm here to see King Kong. That's the manager. Today's my first day, and Mr. Kong comes out and goes, "Oh shoot, you're starting today? Well, here, let me do this. Here's a 2-inch stack of tax forms, compliance forms, Social Security forms, DMV request. So I need you to take some time to fill that out." Now, depending on the statistic that you read, that can take anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours of time, completely wasted. So he or she is going through this big stack of paperwork that is absolutely has zero to do with their ultimate success or retention on the job. Then from that, logins. They don't have their logins. So now we got to find somebody that's going to show them how to even log into a CRM to be able to ultimately do their job. That could take days before that happens. Then, now we got to drug test them, we got to background check them, we got to check their DMV. Onboarding, and it's a term that's used over and over and over and over again. Onboarding simply to me means, getting them to come to work. Everything that I just mentioned can be done digitally, can be done online, can be done prior to the person starting, let's say, tomorrow. So here's a scenario in my mind. They come in, they're unannounced, the manager forgets he or she's going to start that day, they got to do paperwork, they got to fill out background check paperwork, DMV paperwork, and then they're thrown upstairs to see, they're not all bad, but then they're stuck in front of a television to watch some quote-unquote online training from somebody. And that's their first day. They go home, and their significant other at home says, "Well, how was your first day?" "Wow, man, they didn't know I was coming. They didn't have anything ready for me. I really didn't do much. I'm not sure I made the right decision." And her or his resume goes right back online, and he or she is now looking for a job all over again. Now, if that same employee is onboarded, quote unquote, properly, professionally, using the technology that's available to us today, he or she can have all of that done, including logins, prior to them starting tomorrow, Thursday. So now they go in, and like I said yesterday in a post on Facebook, let's throw them a party. We throw parties for people that retire. Let's throw a party for a new hire. Can you imagine, and I'm not living in a dream world, This is possible. Can you imagine that salesperson, the BDR and the BDC, an internet salesperson, a service advisor, a porter, being welcomed into the dealership in a professional manner in a party? You know, let's have donuts. You know, Mark's joining our crew, and we're so lucky to have him. And just everybody, let's give Mark a hand and give him all the tools and help necessary for Mark to be successful. Is everybody in on that? Yeah, boss, we're in. You know, welcome, Mark. Now he or she goes home. How was your first day? And they're like, man, this is the job for me. I'm never doing anything else. It's a complete, total, 100% change in attitude that will carry forward. That alone, in my opinion, again, don't yet have the exact data to back up what I'm going to say, but I'll bet you that reduces turnover, just that, 25% right out of the gate. That would be my first tidbit, and I really, and all you got to do, just Google new hire electronic onboard. There are a million companies you can get the software from, and it pays for itself with retaining your first employee. So I would strongly urge you to do that. I think the other thing, and again, I wrote about this and posted on my Facebook today and LinkedIn and Twitter and so forth, is using the words at work. We have to, and this will lead into your last thing, Mark, and I'll finish it up real quick here, but the thing that dealers sometimes do is they don't think like the job seeker is thinking. Let me give you a couple examples. Let's say they're looking to hire salespeople, but at the dealership they call them product specialists. So they title their ad product specialist. Well, very few, if any, people on their resume list their previous job or current job or what they're seeking is that being a product specialist. There's a really cool little tool that I would urge you guys to take a look at. It's called Google Fights, Fights. It's not owned by Google, but it does very accurately. You put in 2 words or 2 phrases, and it will show which one has more bang to the buck in terms of SEO, in terms of search. So if you use that tool and put in product specialist as opposed to sales representative, you're going to see that sales representative far outweighs product specialist. So when someone's Googling a job, and that's what they're doing anymore, they're Googling a job, they'll Google sales representative, Atlantic City, New Jersey, and then your ad's going to get seen, because that's the first battle. It's got to get seen. Now, just to finish up real quick, and then I'll stop running my mouth. Mistakes that dealers make. They are minute, but in recruiting and in online advertising, the most minute mistake can be huge. Always use the root word. Never abbreviate. Instead of sales rep, it must be sales representative, because again, that's what's going to be on their resume, and the way Google works and all the analytics involves, that's how they're going to search, and that's how it's going to go near the top. Also, it's singular, never plural. Even though you're looking for 2 service advisors or 3 BDRs in your BDC, you want to use representative, not representatives. Again, they're not going to Google or search plural. They're going to search singular. It's super important, and just small details like that are very important. The last thing I want to say, and you really need to be careful of, and hardly anybody knows this, but a lot of dealers want college grads. Let's say in their sales force or BDC, or they're in a department. It's college grads, college grads, college grads. If you put in college grads encouraged to apply, and you don't have any other educational Musts within the ad, must have a high school diploma, must have a college degree. If you don't have other musts in terms of schooling, most job boards will ghost your ad just for that phrase, college grads encouraged to apply. If that's the only time that you mention it in the ad, they will ghost your ad or bury it so deep and nobody's going to see it. So it's a combination of little things that end up making a campaign successful. And again, in November, I'll go much, much deeper in that and take you right behind the curtain on all the do's and don'ts and exactly how to maximize your dollars in terms of recruiting, and more importantly, how to retain that talent that you've recruited in the first place.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Craig. That was very specific stuff that every dealer faces, and I'll throw one thing at that, and that is one of the bigger changes I see is that dealers have to recruit, management has to recruit out of want, not need. You can't wait till you're down 1, 2, or 3 or whatever. It has to be an everyday, ongoing, dedicated, written, and communicated plan. Same thing with your onboarding process, written and communicated, executed. So that's awesome,
right.
Fantastic. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, Mark. In most of my PowerPoints when I speak at conferences, one of the first points is ABS, always be staffing. So you couldn't be more right. When we make mistakes, all of us, and I've done it. When I ran stores, I did it. It was always based on, oh shoot, I'm understaffed. Like hit me like on a Saturday when we have 50 ups and 20 salespeople. And it's like, and that's
right.
That's wrong. It should never get that way, because that's how you end up making mistakes and reaching for people that you shouldn't bring on. There's no way to fix that relationship.
Always deal out of wants, right? Always deal out of wants, not needs, because when you're needy, you can't get what
right.
you want. So
you couldn't be more right.
All right. Well, that's awesome. Well, I'm going to move on to Andy Church. Andy Church is the CEO of ASE Americas, and they deal with just about, if not every major manufacturer in the world today, and they're an international company. And he can give you a little bit Reader's Digest version better than I can of what his company does, but he's here to deal with us today about profitability, whether it's a department or a dealership, whether it be something big or small. So same thing, Andy, if you would kind of share 1 or 2 strong nuggets for somebody that might be able to help them, and then a challenge. I just don't like the word mistake, but something that we tend to do in dealerships commonly that you see to watch out for to change. So with that being said, take it away, Andy.
Great. Thank you very much, Mark, and thanks everybody for attending the call. And I'll be there in November as well, so I definitely look forward to meeting everybody face-to-face and having some great conversations going on. A little bit about ASE. Yeah, we work with about 17,000 different dealers on a monthly basis worldwide, and all the brands. And our main mission, if you will, people ask me, what gets you up in the morning? For me, it's how do I help dealers and people be more successful, right? So from a dealer perspective, it's obviously how do we increase profitability, but at the same point in time, just harkening back to just a second ago, how do we keep employees happy, right? And how do we keep employee retention? Because all those things really do help improve profitability, right? We all know the studies behind some of that stuff. So that's our main goal. My tagline is kind of profit by action, and that's actually our website too, profitbyaction.com. That's what we do, right? So we believe in you've got to take action in order to make profit and to increase profitability in your store. So I chose kind of a couple of different timely subjects because right now it's October 12th, and the new year's just around the corner. So one of the first things that I talk about with Columbus Day being this week is, do you have a plan, not only for today, for this month, and also for 2017? Now's the time to start thinking about those, gathering your managers together and say, are we planning to actually make a profit? And going through that process on a monthly basis as well as a yearly basis has huge benefits, because if you don't know where you're going, how do you know when you get there, right? So that's a huge part of it for me. And when you're looking at that planning, it's not only looking at what do we think we can do volume-wise, but how do we think we can increase those small little pieces. And a lot of what I talk about is the theory of 1 + 1 + 1. So how do I increase my profitability through a series of small actions that add up to big results? So planning is the first one, really that communication and knowing where that roadmap is and taking a look at that. While you're doing that planning, plan for profit. If the bottom line says negative when you do that first plan, go back to the drawing board. If it says 0.5 or 1.5% ROS, go back to the drawing board. You should be planning on a 3 to 5% return on sales. Because if we don't plan for, it's the old saying that if we don't plan for the stars, we won't ever hit the moon, right? So we got to get ourselves out there and be able to plan for that. And there's a lot of little tweaks you can do inside of that area of opportunity. A couple nuggets around that interaction for me. I talked about a couple little quick things from a department by department type basis. One of the biggest things for me in the new and used vehicle section is, and I know you're the sales expert on how to get the deal done and all that. For me, one of the big ones is that TO between the salesman and the F&I office, right? How do we get people into the business office so that we can give them a fully educated? So often either the salesperson sometimes has already prejudged that process or the frustration with that process or whatever that is, but making sure that we make that a quality experience for the customer because we know we can add value. We know we can add value to their experience, not only with the purchase today, but also with the purchase for the next 5 years. Second largest investment after a house. So let's make sure that we slow the process down and do that as a proper turnover every single time. If you go to the back end of the business, one of the big ones for me is making sure during that same delivery process that we introduce them to the service department and really start that experience. We know that sales sells the first vehicle and service sells the rest. And some of our information just shows like 85% of people who have a great service experience will give you an opportunity to purchase the next vehicle. So if they're not in your service department doing service with you, that's just as bad as if you gave them a bad service experience because they have no relationship. So we want to build that emotional bank balance with those customers on an ongoing basis. What better way to do that than by starting a service appointment at time of delivery? So we book that service appointment immediately, gives us a chance to have a reminder via email, even a chance to give them a reminder via a salesperson picking up the phone and call. I know a lot of us like to use BDCs to make those phone calls, but if that's a person that you've just sold a vehicle to and it's a couple of months later, what a great opportunity to say, hey, look forward to seeing you back in the service department, ask for referrals, see how their experience is going. They still know you. You've still got a relationship with them. So use that opportunity to help increase your own profitability, right? Because everybody knows somebody in the family who's always in the market for a new vehicle. So give us another opportunity to take a bite of that apple, if you will. On the mistake side, this is a big one for me, and there's, we could probably talk about mistakes to avoid. And to steal a term from Mark, your stop it. I love that stop it segment. One of the big stop it's for me is stop making pay plans around people instead of roles. So often, I can't tell you, just yesterday I was talking to a dealer, who called to say, we got this pay plan for this guy and we're trying to tweak it and we're making it this and making it that. And we designed that pay plan to be specific to Andy Smith, not to a salesperson or not to a service advisor. And that's not right. We got to have a pay plan that's designed for the position, what we think it should be, and we've got to use that pay plan to incentivize, motivate, and reward. So we have to design that pay plan with several elements into it, but we don't want to design a pay plan for an individual. It's just not the right way to go. Not good for morale because things always get out and get talked about as well, and not good for managers because I can't tell you almost to 100% every manager who ends up in that situation regrets that pay plan or resents that employee for that pay plan that they've had to design for them as an individual person rather than for the role. So that for me is the big mistake that a lot of dealers are still making out there, designing pay plans for an individual rather than for what they want out of that position and that role.
That's awesome, Andy. I see that constantly. I mean, we do training, but we do a lot of consulting for dealers. And almost every single time that I go into a dealership for consulting, we will see pay plans that have been originated for a person, not a role, a department, etc. And the other thing that I see often with the pay plans, the dealer may be struggling because they have put a pay plan in place that's not supporting the dealership in any particular way. It's just not working. And so when I implore my clients, always do a best and worst case scenario on any pay plan. It is awful when you have to go back and tell somebody, hey, you did such a good job, we're going to change your pay plan. I mean, everybody is on this call may have had that happen. I know it happened to me. That's demoralizing for the person, the dealership, etc. We want them to continue to grow, but if you haven't started with, you said, like Craig said, the end in mind, I want to extrapolate that pay plan for the best worst case scenario to make sure that we're not so far out of whack if they hit their numbers the way that they should, that we now got to go and, demotivate everybody by changing the pay plan. So that's great. And I want to add one other thing, if I may, to your simple suggestion about making sure you have a 100% TO and also doing it to the service department. With BDCs today, and Stacey can chime in later on this when she's on, being a BDC person, but I think it's a mistake to 100% take the salesperson out of that sequence. I think the salesperson, being the personal contact, if they're still there at that dealership, should also be in contact with that customer for each and every service department appointment, because that way they're the ones making the connection, whether it's 2, 4, 5, 6 times a year, and that can make a big difference. So that's awesome information. I appreciate it very much. And want to move on with the call, obviously, and I hope everybody's getting a lot out of this. Let's go on to Stacey. Stacey Ellison, the CRM queen. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am fantastic. So just roll out 1 or 2 gems of how you think would be great tips for a dealer or a manager for a department or BDC internet CRM. Just take latitude with that, and then something, if you will, once again, around a mistake or a challenge that you see often with dealerships when you're there.
Okay. I think that the number one issue that I see when I go into dealerships or when I've been employed in dealerships is they don't treat the BDC the way they treat the sales floor. So often your BDC managers are micromanaged. They don't have the authority to hire, to fire, to discipline, to promote, to give pay raises that a GM or a GSM would. So I was very fortunate in the last dealership that I was at that I was treated like a GM. And I had complete control of my department. I had complete control of my budget. I had complete control of making decisions. And that's what made us successful. So you cannot put this department in a dealership because, number one, your salespeople aren't following up. You're going to end up paying 2 people for the job of 1. That's not the reason you put a BDC in. And if you're going to put a BDC in, you need to give that manager or director the same leeway, the same decision-making that you would give your GM or your GSM. And you have to let them make decisions, because I've left dealerships because of that reason right there. Nobody likes to be micromanaged, and if you're hiring a director, you're hiring a BDC manager, you should be able to trust them enough the way you trust your GM. Also, the staffing, like Craig said, is a huge issue. I had a call yesterday. I got a dealership doing 700 leads a month with 2 people in the BDC, and I about fell out of my chair. So he says they're not doing a good job. And I said, well, you need to get more people. I'm not ready to get more people. Then they're going to continue to do a bad job, and they're probably not going to be there in a month or 2 because you did not give them the tools they need to succeed. So if you want a contractor to build you a home and you are responsible for purchasing the materials, you're going to buy the nails, you're going to buy the hammer, and you're going to buy the boards. You're not going to buy thumbtacks for your contractor to build you a home. So BDCs often get refurbished computers, no printers. They don't want to spend money in the BDC, but the second they're not selling cars, they want to blame the BDC because the BDC manager and that team could not communicate effectively, were afraid to communicate on what they need to do a better job. So if you're going to have that department in, you need to know from day one, this is just a reflection of your sales floor. They are to be given everything they need to succeed, or it's not going to work. So one of the other problems that I see with BDCs is, of course, the understaffing, the lack of follow-up. You cannot have 2 people handling 700 leads a month. My rule is 120 maximum opportunities can be handled by 1 person because they have that residual lead flow coming over from 30, 45, 60, 90 days, and even now forward is up to 120-day follow-up. That's what they require.
Stacey, what about a cradle-to-grave situation?
I love cradle-to-grave situations. I'm doing a dealership right now that's doing cradle-to-grave, and I think it's fantastic. The one issue that we had when I went in is they were understaffed. They've now agreed to bring on more staff. So we kind of I started slow with them. I taught them processes. They're actually a one-price non-negotiation store. So their staff does the deal front to back because there's no negotiation. What you see online, he prices at market value is what you pay for. And it's working out well. Believe it or not, their response time is 8 minutes, which is better than half of the dealerships I've seen with BDCs. So I'm a huge fan of cradle-to-grave.
How many leads can, you said 125, 150?
I would say 120.
Basically almost half of that for cradle-to-grave?
Yeah. Now they're getting, I've got a couple in there that are true superstars that are getting about 60 to 70 a month, and the newer ones are starting out with 50. And the follow-up is there. They're doing an amazing job, and they are held accountable. So if follow-up is not done, that opportunity is reassigned by a team leader. And I check that every day. I'll reassign them.
One of the things I know, CRMs really well. Yeah. And I know that you're a real expert on DealerSocket, which, by the way, is going to be sponsoring the program thanks to DealerSocket, our program in November. So if you could share with us, whether it's DealerSocket or even another CRM, what's one of the more underutilized things or things that we could do better with each CRM that you see that's very common when you work with dealerships?
What's so common is that the dealerships rely on these CRM companies, no matter what it is, to come in and install these CRMs, and number one, they don't take it seriously. They are not trained on the CRM, and then they fuss when it doesn't work. So your CRM is a tool. You have to customize it according to the structure and culture of your dealership. You've got to tell your CRM companies what you want to happen, or of course it's not going to work. You have to use those automated email templates. I am not a fan whatsoever of automated email templates, but to satisfy your OEM requirements, I put them in there. Texting from the CRM is entirely underutilized. When we started texting from the CRM, my contact ratio went from a 35 to a 52% for a $100 a month tool. So, with your CRMs, you have to learn it. And my advice to managers, to GMs, the GSMs, the sales managers, there is no reason you should not know that tool better than your staff. You're a manager in that company. You're a leader. So if you don't know it, how can you expect your team to know it? And unfortunately, managers and dealerships are the ones that know least about a CRM. So, one of the things that we're going to do with BDC Max is go in and train BDC managers. We're going to go in and train GMs. We're going to go in and train all the managers in the company to use their tool, what reports to look out for, what numbers to look for, and where to find them, because they need to know. And right now, you would be surprised at how many managers don't even know their CRM.
Well, I see that a lot, unfortunately, and, with all due respect to anybody on this call that knows their CRM inside and out as a dealer, a GM, a GSM, this is, not anything against you. We just happen to see it on a daily basis where people don't. So kudos to you if you're one of those people. Now, just to add on to one thing that you said, what I have been sharing a lot is, okay, I know you have a template. That's fine. But I want you to ask yourself, is this how you would talk to your neighbor in conversation? Is this conversational? Is this like a person? If we can just get rid of the robotic form sales speed. This hurts you way more than it ever helps you. As a matter of fact, those templates, whether it's a phone template for a script or an email, it's just my opinion that those are hurting you by saying you'd be better off not communicating at all. So personalize it, talk like a person. I know that sounds simple, but boy, what a big thing once you change those templates for each person and make it more dialed in.
You know, when I started out as a BDR, it was 100% verbatim by the word tracks I was given. And when I took a job as running a BDC in a dealership, that's the first rule I threw out the window. So not every client is going to be the same. These word tracks that we're taught are not going to be used on everyone. So I teach listening skills more than I teach word tracks.
It's awesome. Anything else you want to share?
No, I'll have more in November at your event. We're working on some really good stuff for there. So.
Well, that's great stuff. And if everybody notices, before I move on, you know, we can get super detailed and very specific about a lot of things and go into very advanced things. And it always goes from the advanced back to the simple. You know, I have a little phrase, I didn't invent it, but I use it a lot, that a big door swings on really small hinges. And it's always a series of small things that adds up to something major in a dealership. And most people are looking, I shouldn't say most people, a lot of people are looking for the magic pill. What's the one thing that's going to move us forward, increase our traffic, our sales, etc. And almost never is that the case. It's a series of very small, duplicatable things that you're doing as a religious, almost fever, every single day as a practice that makes that big difference. So thank you. I appreciate that. And
thank you.
So now I'm going to move on to Mr. Glack Attack, Jeff Glacken from Dealer Authority, talking about social media. I know you have heard with the rest of the folks, but if you were going to share one or two nuggets, if you will, and then one thing that if you see as a mistake, I know I could personally write down about 10 mistakes I make on social media every single day that almost embarrass me, but that you see as a common thing for dealers to look out for that they could get better. What would those things be, Jeff?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I think the most common mistake I see is dealerships just not doing anything as far as social media. It changes daily. I know a lot of them that I talk to have, I tried Facebook way back in 2008, and I didn't sell a single car from it. I'm done. But Facebook is definitely a passion of mine, and I've seen it. I've seen the success. I've seen a lot of failure too, self-inflicted by the dealerships themselves or from a vendor. Success and failure both have been accomplished by both. But what I think is, you know, you see and hear, oh, you should be on every platform you can sign up for. What the hell? They're free. Why not? You know, be where you can have a properly managed profile. That's where you should be. And my opinion right now is be on Facebook, period. If you can't do anything else, get yourself on Facebook. And if you can't get yourself on it, hire somebody to do it for you, because you're missing the boat. Competitors are creeping in through Facebook because you tried it 5 years ago and it didn't work. That's the worst. I mean, I come across abandoned profiles daily, and I just, it kills me. It literally hurts when I see that. It's like, God, they're missing the boat. And you know, I'm going to cover. So I'm not saying that Facebook's the only successful platform, but we've seen the biggest success from Facebook for our clients when I'm faced with tight budgets. Say a client only has $1,000 to advertise on Facebook, but they're also asking me to manage their Twitter. I haven't seen the return on Twitter and we charge extra to manage Twitter. I'll talk them out of it and tell them to put the money on Facebook. Put it to your ad budget. Let's show you some success. If anything changes with Twitter, because we're monitoring all the other platforms for changes, like I think Pinterest is going to be an up-and-comer because Patrick Workman, a lot of people know him. He was at Facebook, then they put him over on Instagram. He worked on the ad platform there. Now he's at Pinterest, hired to develop the ad platform. So if you're thinking, Pinterest is for women and who cares, blah, blah, blah. Well, we hear a lot of stats that women are the big decision makers in the family now, and we've got an ad platform on the horizon, or they wouldn't have spent big bucks to get Patrick Workman over there. So that's just some of the stuff I'm going to cover, but the focus is going to be Facebook at the workshop. Just don't pay for likes, get a budget, have a plan, get results.
Jeff, I did a sales workshop last week, and what I shared with the salespeople even is that, in my opinion, Facebook is the 900-pound gorilla. There might be ways, and I gave some ideas for salespeople to utilize Twitter, but did I tell them that I think that they're going to sell or market or even brand themselves successfully on Twitter? Most of them, I don't think that'll be the case. I think Facebook is the 900-pound gorilla. And I wanted to ask you, I have some opinions around Facebook and something that at times I think I violate, but I think I tell people if they can really be personable, that, people want to know a little bit about you and they want to know your life, and it's a reality TV world today. If they start to understand a little bit about you, your dog, your wife, your cat, your spouse, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your vacations, they start to relate to you a little bit and want to follow you. And do you think that that's true, or can you, obviously I know you could probably go too far, but what do you think about your personalization of your Facebook?
Oh, definitely, and that's another mistake I see is dealerships that are active on Facebook. I've seen some dealership Facebook pages with incredible content because they know the area, they know the people within the store, they know their customers, and so they're posting this incredible content. They have no ad budget, nobody's seeing it, not a single like on a single post, but that's if you're talking about individual salespeople, yeah, I mean, I think the worry there is, and I've experienced it myself. I'm very open. I speak a lot of times before I think, which also means I type before I think. So I'll have a comment or a post out there before I even think it through. And I mean, I mean, you just have to have a plan. You have to think through what you're doing, and more than anything, have a budget. Even individual salespeople, one always comes to mind. People are probably tired of hearing his name, but Mike Davenport, he spends a lot of money on his own. The dealership, I don't believe, gives him a dime. He is doing better than his own dealership digitally.
Well, let's talk about that, because I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Because you mentioned Mike, I think he does a great job, the Louisville Chevy dude, and he advertises, he talks about, also utilizing dark posts before. And last week in my sales seminar, I was working with salespeople about different ways that they can actually advertise and how they can drill down utilizing Facebook. Be a little bit specific and talk about, just for a second, things like a dark post, or if you're actually advertising versus just posting, correct ways that you can advertise and how you can reach your target market and different things that are available that, a lot of salespeople, managers, and dealers don't really know.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just talking about the timeline, I got to a point there for a while where I thought, well, the ad platform is so huge that the timeline doesn't even matter anymore. But that's not necessarily true. It's definitely not true, but I was forming that opinion for a while, and then I realized that when you have a properly managed timeline, when you're posting on a regular basis, you have good activity, likes, comments, shares, all that stuff, that you're rewarded on the ad results. You'll get a lower cost per click. You'll get more exposure, all that kind of stuff. So properly managed across the board just pays off. And you can't only just think about, well, I didn't sell a car today because of Facebook. You don't know that. But so the ad platform, that is, you can actually upload and should. You can pull lists from your CRM, upload them into the ad tool, and run ads specifically to those people. You can also create lookalike lists. So this is my list of customers. Facebook will generate a lookalike list, so you just got double the amount of prospects, and they base it on behavior and things in their profile, things like that. So the ads are where the big bang for the buck comes, and I'm not talking about boosting from the timeline. Get into the ad platform. You have to have a budget. Definitely have a plan, but I mean, you can target all the way down to the model. Give me everyone within 25 miles of my dealership that has expressed interest or shown the behavior that they're in market for a Chevy Cruze. That's incredible.
I think the thing that I love about Facebook is two things. You can target so greatly and so much in depth. I mean, who has more big data than Facebook other than Google? So being able to target in any which way that you want is amazing. And then people think of budgets. Well, you can speak to this better than I can, but I think Facebook is the great equalizer, because whether it's a salesperson, a dealership, a small dealership, they can do some amazing things without a major budget. It does not take a lot of money. This may change in the future, but right now, I don't want to say the word cheap, but it's cost effective. And what you could do with ads and dark posts and things that you do on Facebook, it is the great equalizer, in my opinion. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. And I mean, we do a lot of other things other than social, but I have actually directed or diverted funds from pay-per-click, from SEO, from other services towards Facebook to show a dealer better results. When you're talking 50 cents a click, which you'll hear people brag about cheaper clicks. Oh, I get clicks in single digits. Well, but we know from running hundreds of ads a day that anything too low is low quality traffic, and the targeting isn't correct. And you don't want to go over it. We try to hone in on 50 cents a click. We know that is quality traffic. It's got good targeting, and it's got a high probability of converting. There's too much confusion out there. I think the biggest advice I can give any dealerships listening is if you're paying somebody to do your social media today and you're not communicating with them regularly and asking them what's going on your behalf, or even directing them, giving them content, looking at the results, reviewing how your money is spent, you're likely losing out. The best accounts we have are collaborative accounts, and it's great because we're paid to manage it. We're paid to handle it. We handle it from soup to nuts. Comments, messages, reviews, everything will respond on the dealership's behalf. But the dealerships that say, hey, I pay them to do the bulk of it, but I'm going to do it with them, collaborate with them. So we have fantastic success with those dealerships.
I wanted to ask you one little quick question. I want to get to Troy. One thing, if you could give people one thing in an ad, if a dealership's going to run a Facebook ad that you think is very important to have in that ad. I mean, I know we've talked about targeting, but if there's one thing as a component inside of that ad, is there anything that you could think of off the top of your head that is kind of like a must thing you should have?
Well, and this is personal opinion, but it comes from the results. I like the ads that, mostly what I'm talking about is inventory ads. So like you'll hear a lot of people talk about landing them on the VDP or landing them on the search results page or whatever. But if you build a specific page to land them on, instead of driving them straight to the inventory, like get them to a why buy page and funnel them down to the inventory. And they're shopping. They've seen tons of inventory. They need to know why to buy from you. And the carousel ads, we've seen, that's a specific type of dark post, but the carousel ads, we've seen diminishing results there. That's why you can't have a set it and forget it, asleep at the wheel type of solution. It has to be managed and maintained daily. We check our pages a minimum of 3 times a day. We check the ads 3 times a day. We're constantly shifting, but in those ads, I like the ads that tell a story, that really kind of get the shopper visualizing owning that vehicle. Because you can target down to the model, then you tell that story. Imagine yourself in your Chevy Cruze driving down I-75 heading to Cincinnati or whatever. Those are much better than $299 down, 0. It's like, no, they see that everywhere. It's terrible.
Why buy from
not social?
Tell a story, tell it well, tell it often. That's awesome. Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate that. So in order of time, I'm going to move on, but that was great stuff. Troy Spring from Dealer World Advertising. He's growing so fast, he didn't have time to take a shower in the morning. He just jumps out of bed and starts running. So, Troy, lay it on me.
Yes, sir.
A couple of nuggets that'd be able to help any dealer drive more traffic. I've never met a dealer on earth that didn't say drive more traffic. And then one common challenge, or if you want to call it a mistake, that a lot of dealers face, what would it be? Take it away.
You got it. And I want to dispel that belief. I actually do shower. So, but, I felt like, man, the listeners are going to be like, that guy's gross. So, hey, Mark, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I'm super pumped. Let's talk about a couple of nuggets about selling more cars and driving more traffic. One thing that I would say, and it's just very simple. I'll keep this really simple today. Any marketing manager, general manager, owner, GSM, anybody that's got anything to do with advertising in the store, if you're on the call, make sure that whatever ad you're doing, I don't care if you're still in the penny pincher, trying to figure out whether or not that thing's driving traffic, or, all those great nuggets that Jeff just gave us on social media, and I happen to agree with a lot of what he says, and we run our program similarly, so, just great job in the knowledge that he just gave. Or if it's radio, television, a direct mail piece, it doesn't matter. Whatever that medium is, pay attention to what you're putting out there. There's so many ads that are being run, and I paint the picture that the general sales manager is trying to sell cars, and he's trying to train his staff, and he's also been tasked to write a radio spot, and in some of these smaller stores, especially if we've got any of those listeners on the call, you can't just write anything and put it out there. You may as well just not do it and not spend the money and save the money, because, we have a rule internally, as an example. We say, hey, we don't do any no so what ads. If an ad's so what, and we read through it or we look at it, if it's graphic, and we just ask ourselves, man, where's the teeth? Where's the where's the driver? Where's the hook? Where's the reason for somebody to be inspired? It's not just whether or not they respond to, as Jeff just alluded to, zero down 99 a month. That's not the case. It's, is there a compelling reason to click through? Is there a reason to respond? Is there a reason for them to wake up Saturday morning? And we live our life by this, no joke. So if a dealership's doing their own advertising, when you write an ad, live by this. When they wake up in the morning on Saturday morning, are they going to say to each other, hey, honey, I know we're going to go out and look at cars this morning. We've got to go to ABC Motors to find out if we can get that deal we've been hearing about. Because that's at the end of the day, there's going to be a conversation between the family members at that household that you've been marketing to, whether or not it's Facebook, so Google, AdWords, your website, a radio spot, a television spot. All those eyes and ears are going to be listening, and on Saturday morning or Friday night or whenever that day comes, those people are going to have that conversation, and they're going to drive to the dealership that has inspired them the most. And I love Jeff's idea of the why buy. I still think radio, you and I have talked about this a lot, we do tons and tons of radio, and man, it still works. Because if you reach enough people, you hit them enough times, and then that creative message that I'm talking about, that message that's got some grip and some teeth and some grit to it, and it's not a so what ad, and they listen to it, and it's memorable. Maybe it's funny, and it's got a great hook in it. By the time at the end of the week comes and they're thinking about car shopping, you're top of mind with a great offer, and they show up. So, to sum that up in a nutshell and recap, if you're going to spend money on any ad, read that ad and ask yourself, would it inspire me to ask the question, hey, wow, that's a really good deal. I didn't know I could get a quad cab truck like that for $199 a month. I didn't know, their why buy, that they have this. You have to ask yourself if it's inspiring. If it's not, it's white noise. So that's number one. Don't do any.
I say hallelujah, brother Turbo.
That's right, buddy. I'm pumped up today.
I say preach.
That's right. I'm ready.
Boy, I want to put
No what ad. So the second thing I would say is, what's that?
Can you hear me? I want to put you on the spot. I don't want to interrupt you, but I want to put you on the spot.
Yeah, go ahead. No worries. Go ahead.
Like you did just now, because I know you can handle this. Give me one idea of an ad of something that you did or your client did that was successful recently that had that. Wow, why buy from me? Wow, I got to go see this dealer on that day. Give me an example. Give me something real.
All right, I'll give you an example. So, in this crazy digital world, and as you know, we're a completely 100% under one roof agency. So we do everything, soup to nuts, all over the place under one roof. So not every particular advertising has the same strategy. As I stated, I happen to agree with what Jeff just said about when you're on social media and landing people on a why buy type of page and those types of things. Well, let me flip back to, old school and tell you that this still works. We run radio spots that say, we call it the forgiveness spots. And the forgiveness spot might say something like, if you've got dings, dents, or scratches on your credit, we forgive you. If your car's got dings, dents, scratches, or maybe it smells a little, we forgive you. Hey, it's the credit and trade-in forgiveness sale. So we do this crazy thing, and we just talk to people, and because look, in automotive advertising, there are only 3 or 4 real hooks when you go to electronic media like radio, television, direct mail, those types of things, which again, by the way, they all still work. So when you go down that road, you want to talk about, talk directly to a customer, what they care about, so it doesn't end in the so what land. And an example of that again is, hey, I care about, can you get me approved? So if I get them waking up Saturday morning saying, hey, honey, what about ABC Motors with that credit forgiveness program they got going on? Mate, it sounds to me like maybe they're going to get us approved. We ought to go check out that dealership. Maybe they don't have credit problems, but they got a trade that they got 111,000 miles on because they're a road salesman, and they go, hey, honey, remember that ad I heard all week, all month long, and they talked about trade-in forgiveness, and they said, doesn't matter how many miles are on your car, we want it. Maybe I better go check out that dealership because, I don't know, I haven't heard anybody else tell me that. So you go down that road, and we've had extremely, extremely big success with things like trading credit forgiveness. Because dealers will tell us, hey, man, people are literally calling and saying, hey, I heard this ad, and I got really bad credit, and I got a lot of miles on my car. Do you think I should come in? And again, it's not about driving subprime traffic. If a store can't handle subprime traffic, you take that part out. But every single ad that we write, we try to get that customer to wake up on again, Saturday morning is our day, but we know you got to do business all week. But we're trying to get somebody to say, I've got to go to that dealership and check this deal out.
That's awesome. Anything else?
Yeah, just again, the second thing that you asked me about, I'll just skip to the problem that we see with some stores. And then I'll show you how the two tie together. They got to cut the budget sometimes because, not cut the budget down, but cut some of those little items out. And you and I spoke about this, recently when we had a chance to chat. A lot of dealerships just have a couple of $1,000 items in there that just don't work, and then they don't have enough money to do more Facebook, like Jeff just alluded to, which we're big, huge fans of as well. I mean, if you're not doing that, most dealers are like, well, I'll throw 1,000 at it. I'm like, I think you ought to throw 4 at it. It works, or whatever the number is. But they have some things in their ad budget that maybe a sales manager or service manager or somebody bought because the rep comes in and they brought brownies that smelled really good that day or something, and they don't know, they're not on a contract. So I'd recommend dealers get their ad budget out. If they don't have one really printed, have the controller pull a schedule, put it into an ad budget formula, and look at everything you're spending money on. You'll be surprised, almost every dealer that we talk to has between $5,000 and $10,000 a month worth of things that they are willing to cut immediately. And when we do that, and we cut those little things, we have more dollars to spend towards that type of advertising I just talked to you about, which actually works. So they're afraid to spend more money on the things that are really working because they just don't have it. But if you go digging enough in the budget, you'll find it. There's probably some things in there that you shouldn't be doing.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you letting me put you on the spot a little bit to give some specifics, because I think everybody, when they're listening, they're like, okay, this sounds good, but man, give me the teeth, give me the real stuff, So that was awesome. I appreciate that very much.
I'll give you one last tidbit, because even if we help one dealer that's listening today, Mark, and this is the type of stuff we'll talk about next month too at the workshop, but we have a client that does, for quite some time, he was doing a $99 a month Ram quad cab 4-wheel drive pickup truck, brand new. And every single one of our clients, when we would bring that to them and say, hey, look, this is an inspiring ad. It's a brand new truck for $99 a month. They would say to us, well, I can't do $8,000 down, or it's not $8,000 down. This guy was doing less than $3,000 down to be at $99 a month on his quad cab truck. And they would ask us how they did it. And I would recommend that every dealer understands you got to take that ad car seriously. Don't just have a sales manager, whip something up in 2 minutes. This guy ordered specific trucks that were a model high enough to have a great residual value with very little equipment in that particular package to drive the MSRP down, and then he just worked the heck out of that deal, netted it out, figured it out, and next thing you know, we're advertising a brand new quad cab truck for $99 a month with less than $3,000 down. Dealers aren't willing to put in the hour or the 2 hours it takes to find an ad car that's going to be inspiring. And if they do, I can tell you from experience, it'll drive traffic. So, some of our job right now is teaching dealers, how to build a true ad car like the old days. It's just find a car that's inspiring, and it'll drive traffic.
Troy, I always tell my clients that if you're at the last second saying, I have to put an ad together for a deadline, don't do the ad. Save the money, forget it. That is no way.
You know what's funny?
I can't tell you that I wasn't guilty doing that a time or two in my life as well. So,
good point.
Mark, at least 3 times a week we have somebody send us an ad they want us to post, again, either Google, Facebook, radio, television, doesn't matter. But we look at the ad, and then we have to call them and say, hey, by the way, i.e., let's say it's a Chevy Cruze or something or whatnot, and we call them and go, you know, you just gave me a $239 a month payment on an 84-month buy with $4,000 down, and I'm on Chevy. Listen, I'm on Chevy.com, and they got a $169 a month lease with no money down. Like, how do you? I wonder whether or not, how many dealers are they losing because they don't know how to work the deal. So it's really teaching them how to manipulate and work the leasing system, the residual values, the model codes, to get the best value that you can, and then stock some of those cars, because some of those people are going to want to buy that car.
One of the things that I'm getting out of all of you, and I learned this phrase from a gentleman who's a very wealthy guy, very successful guy, brilliant guy, and he uses the phrase that I use a lot, and it's called intentional congruence. And what you just laid out there was make sure that you're advertising, whether it's digital, whether it's social, not just advertising, but what you're doing on social, how you're recruiting people, what environment you're creating, what culture, going back to Stacey and the BDC and creating the templates in the way that you want. All of this in every single department and everything you do and what everybody has spoken about should have some form of very well thought out, written and communicated, intentional congruence. From one thing to the other should lead, and it should always support each other rather than acting in silos of, I got a new car manager, a used car manager, a BDC, an internet, I've got this, I've got that. We have to have more intentional congruence with everything we do. So that's one thing that just struck me out of what all you guys have talked about, better communication. So if you don't mind, I want to, people that have been on this call a while are like, hey, I got to go sell something. I got to get back. So if you're on here, man, I really appreciate you. I just want to share something that is a wrap to all this. And I've been doing this a long time. I do training. I do consulting. We have online training. We provide F&I products. We do a lot of different things for dealers. But what I have found, and literally going in and out of dealerships for well over 20 years, thousands of dealerships, is there's about 5 things that I see congruent-wise to dealerships that rock and do well. Number 1, and this goes to Craig, do you attract and recruit the right people? Well, that takes a game plan. Who are you looking for? I always say before you start to recruit people, sit down and write down who is my ideal candidate. If they walked in the door right now, which they're probably not, but who am I looking for? Because if you don't know, how would you know if you found it? So, you got to set goals for what you're looking for. And I'm not talking about anything that would violate equal opportunity employment, nothing like that. I'm talking about who am I looking for? What is my ideal candidate for this particular job? So do you attract and recruit the right people? What I do is I have a dealer, I say from 1 to 10, how are you doing? Write down and be honest. And I have all the managers do it from 1 to 10. Are we attracting, recruiting, and getting the right people for our team? Because guess what? Everything that everybody has mentioned today, none of it works without the right people. You give me the right people, they can do damn near anything without my help. You give me bad people, it's never going to work no matter what you do. So am I attracting, selecting the right people? Number 2, do I give them incredibly clear, and I know Craig mentioned something about this as well, Stacey did, all of you really did. Do I give them incredibly clear communication, written communication, verbal communication, and expectations? Do you know what your job is to do, when to do it, how to do it? And even if you do it in a different way because you have great talents, that's fantastic. But what are your expectations, and is it extremely clear? All great dealerships have great communication, and all bad dealerships have very weak communication from weak leaders. And then also what we find is what we call passive-aggressive management. They don't communicate expectations very well. So what happens is when the people don't meet their unannounced expectations, then they go off on them or they fire them. That's passive-aggressive, and that just doesn't work. That leads to a bad culture and environment. So I ask everybody listening, have you taken the time, and this hurts, because you got to take the time to write down What is it that you want somebody to do, how you want them to do it, what are their expectations, is it clear, and is it communicated not once, but virtually almost every single day? What you communicate gets done and starts to create its own culture. So am I attracting and selecting the right people? Am I communicating and giving clear expectations? Number 3, education. If you don't educate, well, we all know what happens whenever there's a lack of education. I won't drone on about it, but great dealerships seem to have people that are educated on every single facet. And I would invite every dealership to cross-educate your managers. I believe the day is coming where you will no longer have silo managers. You won't have just strictly a new car manager, a used car manager. Yes, they may be in charge of that department, but overall, we're going to start to see more pools of people doing multiple jobs within a dealership. As a matter of fact, one simple thing, why do we have people wait to get into F&I? Because the F&I people are busy, when often we may have 2 managers just sitting there, 3 managers, 4 managers. If they're not with the customer in front of a salesperson, they should be able to take that F&I turn at that point. So I believe that we're going to have the right people. We're going to have to attract and select them. We're going to have to give them clear expectations and communication. You are also at that point going to have to educate and educate every single day. It's not an every once in a while thing. The other thing is you have to motivate. And people say, well, the best people are self-motivated. Well, I agree with that. But how many of those 5%ers do you have at your dealership? And even the best of the best need some motivation. Life hits you from time to time, and we got to know them personally. I talk to managers all the time about take a different person to lunch every day. Get to know their why. When the why gets strong, the how gets easy. Do you know each individual's why at your dealership? If not, I don't know how you could potentially help them grow by motivating them. And we do need some extrinsic motivation. We're not always intrinsically motivated every single day. So we've got to motivate them. We've got to educate them after we recruit and hire them, give them clear expectations. And the last one, because I'm known for a little thing called stop it, this is something that I think we're not doing well overall. I'm just talking about general, no one person in mind. But when I think about dealerships in general, something that we've got away from is holding people accountable. And everybody has to be held accountable. It goes back to that passive-aggressive thing. So I used to do a little thing called the review preview every single month. We sat down with the salespeople. I was the general manager, and I would review your previous month with you. And it would be not only your numbers of people you spoke to and how much money and all of those things. I would review what I wanted to engage with you about your attitude and the why of you and what your end goals and results were. And then we previewed the next month, yes, what you wanted to make, what that would take numbers-wise, and how many sales and customers and leads and all that good stuff. But we tried to preview. And the biggest thing about that was just the communication. And so the other thing that I see that's an age-old thing, this is simply nothing new, but very few dealerships do it every single day like religion, is a great old-fashioned save-a-deal meeting. If I could tell any dealership on earth, if there's one thing that will help you, it will help your communication, your sales, and everything else. Sit down like a religion the same time every day without fail with every manager, internet, BDC, etc., and go through your sold deals, your unsold deals. I want you to go through all the numbers for each department and make sure that you're doing a save-a-deal meeting and that nothing's falling through the cracks if at all possible. And sometimes when I work with smaller dealers, they'll say, well, we're so small, we communicate really well. And I say, if you'll just trust me on this, I've never seen a dealership that won't improve their communication through a daily morning save-a-deal meeting with the F&I department and all the other department managers, that you're trying to go through every single thing about yesterday's business and then month to date. Why? You can't wait to the end of the month to say, you know, we're having a bad month. First of all, there's no such thing as a bad month. You're having good or bad goals, good or bad action, good or bad game plan, good or bad review, good or bad attitude. It's generally in those 5 things. If you're having a great month, it's because of those 5 things. And if you're having a bad month, it's because of those 5 things most of the time. So if you just accept that and look at those 5 things, I've never seen a dealership that through recruiting, attracting the right people, onboarding them, getting them very clear expectations on a continual basis with good communication, educating them, motivating them, and then holding people accountable and yourself as well as the leader, and falling on the sword from time to time when it's not even what you would say your, quote, fault. Those things, those 5 things are the basis of any great dealership I've ever been into. And in those 5 things are also the basis of any, if you want to call it a bad or underperforming dealership I've ever been into. Anybody got any questions or comments about that?
Well, actually,
I think you're dead on.
Actually, I've got a bunch of thank yous. I don't actually have any questions up right now. This is Brian with AutoSuccess. Everybody that's on the call right now, if you would like to ask questions to any of our presenters, please type them into the question field. And actually, if there's a particular person that you would like to answer your question, please just type their name in there. You can just put the first name, and I'll ask the question. Right now, we have Ernie says thank you, and Lawrence says good webinar. Well, unless another question pops in here, I'd like to thank all of our presenters today. Thank you all for taking the time to join us today. Also, Mark, why don't you tell everybody, before we move on, Mark, why don't you tell everybody how to register for the event and a little bit more about the event where they can learn more from all these speakers?
Well, I think if you've been on this call for any more than 5 minutes, you can tell that everybody on this call is extremely passionate. They all have big hearts. These people on this call are always helping people, even at times, believe it or not, if they don't get paid. I think every single person on this call I'd like to thank for being on here, because I think they help on a daily basis move the industry forward in a better direction. We are having a high-performance management workshop, and we will have dealers there, sales managers, GSMs, internet, BDC, whatever department you want. We had somebody registered the other day from Mexico that's coming as a dealer. So it is November 15th and 16th. It is a 2-day program. It's going to be jam-packed with these folks that are on this call plus myself, and it's going to be very different, unique on purpose. This is not, I have a sponsor. It is sponsored by Dealer Socket, and we're blessed to have them. But as I told them, this is not a sponsor pitch fest. They're not even speaking. I'm not allowing them to speak. I'm not allowing anybody to get up there and just pitch their wares for 45 minutes. Everybody in here on this call is going to be talking in depth, communicating, and engaging for probably an hour and a half to 2 hours at a time, doing really deep and specific dives. We're going to do what we call roundtables with Ask the Expert. So you hear 3 or 4 people speak and communicate, and you say, man, I want to sit at that table. Well, you're going to get a chance to go around with each one and ask very specific questions. We want everybody who attends to send information beforehand, so we'll know more about your dealership and can provide you information about your challenges. And then over and beyond that, we're going to do a couple of volunteer, what I call hot seats. I call them love seats, because we're going to try to break the dealership down from element to element to element, and provide something better for them that hopefully when they leave, they'll walk back or fly back, drive back, and have some great information for their store. Jam-packed for 2 days, and if you want to register or get more information, on my website at Tewart.com, it's Tewart like Stewart with no S, Tewart. There's a call-out on the page. There's actually 2 of them. One of them has a video for a workshop I just did last week, a sales workshop, but the other one is for high-performance management. It is at the Hilton in downtown Cincinnati, 10 minutes from the airport. It is a phenomenal property. I love this place. I've done a lot of programs there over the years. And I promise you, when you leave, you'll have some great information. You'll have a ton of stuff, and you'll have people that will have sat down with you to try to solve whatever you want. If you come to this workshop, I give you my promise. I have a 5-way money-back guarantee. Number 1, it's unconditional. If you don't like it, I'll give you your money back. Number 2, I'll pay up to $500 of travel expenses. Number 3, I'll give you your money back, and I'll pay you what you would have paid me. And I'll give you up to 30 days after the workshop to decide, and I'll let you keep the materials that's worth roughly $1,500. So if there's any question that I stand behind what I do in this workshop, I probably just answered that question, and we would love to have it.
Awesome. Awesome.
Hey, Mark, we do have a question here. Can Mark repeat his list of 5 thoughts? I wrote notes down, but want to confirm them. Would you mind just repeating those 5 thoughts?
Sure. 5 things, and I'm just going to generalize and make it simple. Number 1, attract, hire, select the right people. And, obviously we'll go into depth in that, but attract, select, hire the right people, the right team. Number 2, give clear and communicated expectations and communications. Very clearly communicated expectations and just overall communications. Are you communicating and giving clear expectations? Number 3, do you educate your folks? The next one is, do you motivate? And then number 5 is accountability. Are you holding your folks accountable? Are you holding, more importantly, as a leader, yourself accountable?
All right.
Those are the 5.
All right. Well, we've got a few other thank yous. Kevin says thank you. Actually, we got a stack of thank yous. And I thought this was awesome. Thank you all. Good webinar. Looks like we've got a lot of praise for the people that took the time out of their day to present today. I appreciate you all taking the time, both those who presented and those who attended. I hope to see you all on a future webinar. Mark or any of our speakers, is there anything that you would like to share before I let these attendees go today?
I just want to thank me and AutoSuccess for doing this, and everybody who listened for taking the time. And looking forward to seeing everybody next month.
I would tag on
This is Craig Lockard.
Been a friend of mine for years.
This is Craig Lockard. I just like to say, and again, it sounds kind of campfire-ish with s'mores and singing songs, but and I know I speak for several people that I know real well on this call. I'm really honored to be with talent like is in this room right now, and I know if a dealership attends or sends people to this workshop, there is zero doubt that they will, in fact, go back with multiple ideas that can be put into practice without spending $1 trillion in just common sense ways to make your store more profitable, to change the culture of your store, or traffic, handle the traffic that you have. I've been to a ton of conferences and workshops. This one really is going to be different. I would urge everybody into any AutoMax clients that are on the phone right now, reach out to me and I'm going to do something special for you myself. So I really want to see you attend and go behind the curtains on what we all do to assist dealers. It's just going to be awesome, and I'm so honored to be part of this thing. I really appreciate you, Mark. Really do.
Thank you. I appreciate you as well.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you for coming. I hope to see you all on a future AutoSuccess webinar, and thanks. See you soon.
Hey, Brian. Hey, Brian, guys.
Thank you.